Hey JC, how you doing all the way from Atlanta? Mr. Dan, how you doing all the way from Indiana? Great to see you, my friends. I hope you're having a great day, and I hope everything is going great. It's been a crazy day in this country, and I think right now the best thing to do is concentrate on art and just sending good vibes out there. We got we got the probably maybe a couple of more. I'm working on this painting actually during the week, and I'm enjoying it and kind of bringing everything together little by little. And I'm happy to actually complete this painting because I really love the concept. It's definitely not a photorealistic painting. I'm not after photorealism. I'm after a mood. I'm after emotion and sort of like a slice of life, so to speak, of where we live when you live in a city in the United States during 2025, right? So that's basically my whole approach to this. So I'm using the wet palette by Red Grass. Ah, thank you, sir. I appreciate that, JC. And Mr. Kyle, how you doing all the way from the Hershey area? So great to see you. Thank you, JC. I appreciate that so much. And today, oh, not too bad, my friend. And so I want to work on some of the chrome here, and then maybe the shadow under her boot here, and just kind of make this painting kind of really have an atmosphere, and not to rush it. And the most important thing when doing a painting is to stick with it until you said what you wanted to say. And so I'm not quite there yet, but I'm feeling good about it nonetheless. So that's important. So I'm going to get my Pure Ref out here so I can see what I'm doing and decide. So today I'm going to be doing mostly paintbrush techniques. Thank you so much. Dan says it looks good. I appreciate that. And so the first thing I want to do is, you see how the top of her head kind of blends in the background? So I want to separate that, and I'm going to separate that with a light gray. So her hair we know where her hair starts and the background begins. So even in the photo reference that I have, I'll be able to really delineate that. So that's important. And I have my paintbrushes wherever they are. Where'd they go? Here they are. These are my paintbrushes. Now I also work in oils, and I work in pastels, and I work in airbrush. So I got to make sure I keep my brushes separated. That's very, very important. So here I want to kind of bring this much lighter, so I separate her hair. So I'm going to see exactly, how I'll mix that color. And we don't just mix color, we really figure it out, what is what is the makeup of that color, right? So I'm going to go ahead and find that. Very interesting. Okay. And let's make this happen here. Alright, so know exactly what I have to do. And let's get all the three elements ready. Okay, so let's go ahead, and I'm going to make that happen now. I'm going to get those colors, and that's a pretty light color actually, so even lighter than what I just have in my hand here. So I have to find something even brighter. Here we go. So I'm using the golden line I'm using all of their paints. I'm using their heavy body, I'm using their fluid, I'm using their open line. And we have my palette knife right here. And I'm just going to pull off just a little bit here. And we're going to get our other color. I really love painting this way, definitely. Whoop, one of my colors just fell. What color was this? Ooh, this is a new color I got. India Yellow. I just purchased that. That's a great color. And let me get my brush, which is right here. Okay, and so it's important to make sure that you have the correct brushes at your disposal and the correct colors at your disposal. And I love it when we find the color rather quickly. Hey Patty, how are you? Great to see you. How's everything? So here's the color as promised. It's a little warm, but I like it. You can always cool it down. It might have too much energy, so I might have to calm that energy down. And we may have to add a little bit of Airbrush medium here. Kind of thin this out. And you can see how we're really shaping her beautiful head here. Hey Gary, how's it going? Michael McClung, Gary from Hershey, and Michael from Baltimore. Great to see you guys. How are you? And Patty all the way from Illinois. Great to see you as well. Thank you so much for hanging out on this Wednesday night. So it's funny today, I taught a class in oil painting, taught a class in airbrush, and now I'm doing a live stream in acrylic. So, but I think artists really should be working in a lot of different mediums. Don't limit yourself, ever. I always say, you know, so artists come to me and they want to learn how to airbrush, and they end up doing 3 different mediums, because as artists we have to grow, and that's one of the things I teach my students, that you need to grow. It's important, you know, to have your favorite medium. That's all good in the hood, right? But you want to make sure that you're growing. You want to make sure that your work is expanding, not just sticking with one medium. Look how beautiful that is, adding that. You know, regular airbrush couldn't do that. Oh wow, that's so Mr. Michael is doing 3 different surfaces. See, and I'm glad to see that you're growing, sir. That's amazing. That's so important. And this is great by lightening this, we help to define her even more. And we can add some of this lighter color here. And this is not like a super important area of the painting, but what it does is it actually helps you to get warmed up, you know. John Boy, Mary Ellen. Mary Ellen, was that the real cute one? That was the oldest? I thought she was incredibly beautiful when I was a kid. I might have been like 8 years old, but I had a crush on her. And you can see I'm using a fairly large brush, which is good and it's important. And adding some depth to the background here, especially in the window of the train. And the thing about what's really great about working with Golden is that you can use their mediums to make things more opaque and thicker. And when you're working on a painting, thoughts of finishing should not even be in your mind. You should just keep going. And the whole idea of finishing the painting will happen naturally in its time. You have to let it play out. One of the things I'm going to be working on is going to be gouache in the coming year, and also I'm going to be working on 100% acrylic paintings. Just keep swimming. That's so true. Just keep going. Don't worry about anything. Just worry about seeing things through. Too many people don't see things through. Hey Wendy, how you been? Great to see you. How are you today? I'm so glad you're here. It's so great to see you. How are you today? We are working on our young lady in the subway. I want this to be brighter back here. This light. And the great thing about acrylics is just how beautifully quick they... Oh my God, you broke your arm and wrist. Oh my God, hand. Oh, how are you? That's horrible. I'm so sorry to hear that. What's really great is that when you're working with the heavy body and the open acrylics, you really can change the texture and get more thicker, which is really nice. And get like a different look by adjusting that. Yes, definitely get well soon, Wendy. And the great thing about the open line is that the open line is really fantastic as far as, you know, not drying so quickly. They feel like oils. Been in the cast for 4 weeks and 4 weeks to go. Oh my goodness. So sorry to hear that. That's horrible. And we're just going to continue working on this painting and enjoying ourselves. And any questions, feel free. Oh wow, you fell in a small area, all force went on the wrist. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. That's terrible. Oh man. There's this light that comes down here. I'm going to use a big brush for that, believe it or not. But I think I need just a little bit of this thinner. I may use just regular water. So you can thin your acrylics with water, but not more than like maybe 15%. Well, you'll be okay, definitely, because you have God. Oh, well, thank you. Wendy says she looks beautiful. I appreciate that so much, Wendy. Thank you. I'm just gonna enjoy myself with her and, you know, make sure I just go with it. Mr. Roy, all the way from New Jersey, how are you, sir? Great to see you. How's everything? Mr. Roy. Everyone's happy to see you, Wendy. So glad you're here. And you too, Patty. So glad you're here. Mr. Roy and everybody. Mr. Gary, great to see you as well. Mr. Kyle, Mr. Michael, Mr. JC, if I haven't said it, and Mr. Dan. Thank you everybody for hanging. Really appreciate you all. Just trying to maybe hit some of these blasts of light. Kind of this kind of colorless. So who is Amit? Is there an Amit here I didn't see? Let me see. I hope I didn't see somebody. Did I miss somebody? Let's see. And now I'm just going to extend this kind of sign that you have on the subways. And I'm using this wet palette, which is by Redgrass. It's a small one. I'm going to get a larger palette, and I'm going to continue this technique. So I need a larger palette. I'm going to be adding a lot of mixed media with my airbrush in the future. Because I was thinking about it, there's no reason, if you're doing airbrush and you're sticking with just airbrush and let's say create text, paint, or you're working on automotive, you're not doing that for artistic reasons. You're not doing that for purity. You're doing it because you can't add anything else onto a car. That's all it's to it. You don't have the ability. If you did go ahead and put charcoal or you know, brush techniques, you're gonna lose it. You know, you're gonna lose a lot of. It won't adhere to what you're doing. So it's the constraints of painting on cars. It's not an artistic choice. So it gets twisted that it's an artistic choice. But what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be adding heavy-bodied acrylics. I'm going to be adding charcoal. I'm going to be adding pastel. I'm going to be doing a lot of things to make the airbrush paintings better, Wendy. See, now with heavy-bodied acrylics, I can do some like kind of impasto techniques if I so chose. And that's artistic expression. That's experimentation. We can't stay in the same spot over and over again and keep doing it over and over and beating the same drum. It gets boring. And it's not growth. And we have to have that growth mindset, right? So right here I'm going to add some really nice bright lights on this floor. And also, I'll be able to delineate her boots a little bit. I always said from the very beginning, I didn't come into the airbrush world to play nice. I came in to shake things up. I have in the past, and I will continue in the future to shake things up. This is, if anyone's following me, you know by now it's not same old, same old. And what I did last year and what I do this year is always different with every year. Not because I want to be different, it's just because I have that growth mindset. If you're painting on cars and you have to have it stick on cars and you have to use certain materials, hey, I understand that. You're within the confines of your business. But if you're not thinking of a better mousetrap as you're doing it, like the way Mr. Steve Leahy did with that Molotov, which is a good marker company, by the way, and he sprayed that kind of shiny chrome. That was really fantastic. So it was great. So Mr. Michael said, did I find challenging to work on the mirror like I am finding it challenging to work on glass? It is. So, but what really happened, it wasn't a challenge because what I did was I treated it with the 6000, the Autoborn sealer. I did 4 coats in between, lightly sanding it, but I didn't spray it. What I did was I applied it with the brush, and so what I did actually is then I went over it with I first did India ink, and then I did Createx, and then over that I did oil paints, and that was really exciting. So I think I found it more beneficial by applying the 6000 with the brush. What's really great, if we look close, you can see how I'm adding impasto techniques. Whoop. And that's how I'm getting a look of the Impressionists. I can kind of move this around. Kind of dry brush it. And get like real interesting effects. But you see how I'm really shaping her foot that's inside the boot. And I can direct the eye where I want to direct the eye. I'm the boss. Like the director in a play or a director of a movie. You're the boss. And I want some more powerful light here. So I'm going to add some of that impasto technique here. I want her to be quiet in the sense the colors to be quiet compared to the kind of intrusive bright lights of a subway car. So you see now she kind of is more calm, right? And that's what I'm doing. See how I could get opacity that only an airbrush artist would dream of. Now don't get me wrong, there's things that an airbrush can do that an oil painter can only dream of. But the difference with me is I'm not limiting myself. I'm saying I'll take some of that ability, thank you very much. That's great. I'll take some of that ability from the airbrush artist. Thank you very much. Now it seemed to come to life a little bit. And I'm letting it come to life, you know what I mean? I'm not forcing it. But notice this beautiful opacity right here. And just layer that. And now it becomes something deeper. Something... No, yeah, he's on the other train. That was the other girl, right, Kyle? So you sprayed 6,000, but it's still alright. It just seemed weird with the colors on it. So I'll show you what I did. And basically, I had to really kind of take it easy in a sense and kind of do several layers until I felt I was getting the opacity that I was wanting. I'll show you guys what I did so you can see. Here she is again, and this is on a mirror. So there's a certain amount of glow that you get from painting on a mirror, which is really interesting. And I'll do it again. And it's real inexpensive. You can get these mirrors at a dollar store. But I do recommend putting the... And now, so why wouldn't I gesso it? Because if you gesso it, you lose the whole point of the mirror, right? The mirror is going to reflect, kind of have that electromagnetic kind of reaction, and that's going to give you the really sharp colors. Thank you, JC. And so by brushing it on, I felt no difference, because I didn't feel anything different than brushing it on. So what I did was I brushed it on, let it dry, lightly sanded. After it dried, all 4 times, and then after that was I went ahead and did an India ink underpainting. Then I did an underpainting in Createx, and then from there I went ahead and painted on top of it. So I like that. And that was an experiment, you know, and that's what I talk about, you know. Don't keep doing the same old, you know. Make sure you break some of your own rules. That's so important. Yes, I think that's the problem, is the fact that you would have to put it on a backing. And I would put it like on a white backing or something like that, rather than just painting with see-through. I think that's going to be the issue. Can you put a backing on that? I'd love to hear your thoughts if you're thinking of doing that. I'm just going to extend this light right back here. And really starting to feel like she's more in this kind of industrial, kind of, I don't know, emotionless environment, right? I'm going to be right back, guys. I'm going to use the bathroom. Please talk amongst yourselves. And so what we're going to do is we're going to continue painting, kind of adding more life to the painting here, you know. And one of the things is I think I want to come in with some of the shadow in her boot. And I'm going to come in with some airbrush and just create some shadow here. Same thing right here. A little bit of shadow. Then maybe I can come in with a super dark color. Maybe right underneath her boot here, her heel. Be helpful to put on my glasses. So I'm using the golden, not the high flow at this point, or not even the fluid acrylics, but I'm using the heavy body and the open line of acrylics. And I can use this nice, beautiful dark color. Actually, the color I want is right here. It is Bone Black, which is a very warm black. And I just have to locate it. Where would I be if I was Bone Black? Let's see. There we go. So here is the Bone Black by the open line. And what I like to do is just kind of grab it like this, as opposed to let it pour. Just grab a little bit like that, no more than that. Don't do it over your painting. I'm doing it because I'm demonstrating, but I would not do it over my painting otherwise. And then you can tap it, and then the paint goes back in the tube. And this is Golden Open Slow Drying Acrylics. So you might ask me, Tim, how can you go from oils in the morning, airbrush in the afternoon, and into acrylics in the evening? Because pigment is pigment. It's just basically what is binding the pigment, but it's still painting, all of it. And hey, how you doing, Mr. Nick from Minnesota? Great to see you. How's everything? Always a pleasure. Yes, living on the edge. That's the best way. Did I get it right, sir? Yes, okay. It takes me a little while, but once I do, I get good. And now I'm going to use this black, because remember, we want to bring her out of the background, and how we do that is to create, to create some nice contrast between her and the surrounding items, the surrounding colors. When you get to this stage of the painting, you're not being so literal when it comes to matching the photo. You're really getting a little more like, okay, I'm feeling this. I want it to look like a painting that I have in my head when I started this, And after this, so the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be finishing paintings that I had begun sometimes years ago. And so there's going to be this painting I'm going to be finishing to completion. There's another one I did, which was really exciting. And I'm going to be finishing that with the golden, and an airbrush painting done with Createx, and I'm going to complete it with the golden line of acrylics. And I'm going to be using heavy body acrylics. So, you might see some areas in your painting that you're not 100% with, and that just means that, you just got to work it out, and that's what I'm doing, just working it out, and that's really important. And it looks like I have a new member. I wonder who the new member is. If I could, I can't see who the new member is, but I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a member. And I'm going to have some really cool content coming down the pike for memberships, so that's exciting. And so now I'm going to move around rather, I don't have to stay in one area. I can move around. And I like this part right here. Since I have this really dark bone black right now, I can really get in there and start delineating some areas. So, there's different blacks. There's carbon black, there's lamp black, there's bone black, and they all have their their charms, I know, let me see. Ivory black is your typical black. It's a nice opaque black, and it's great for covering, and it's nice and neutral. Your bone black is more of a warm organic black. It's a little more transparent, and that's how that is different. You have Mars black, which is more of a metallic black. So, it's just like different colors have their own charm. This is, to me, almost like an homage to my teacher, Harvey Dinnerstein. And it's not photorealistic, but it has a feeling of truth to it. And that's, I studied with Harvey almost 4 years, and, he's famous for his subway paintings, but not the subway paintings, usually in oil and in pastel, so I'm going my own way, giving an homage, but also in my own way. Since this is an airbrush and acrylics, it's really exciting to have my own take on somebody's work who I fiercely admired and admire and will always admire. And you'd be surprised, the paintbrush techniques are really exciting. And it kind of, to combine that with the airbrush is really something special. And like I said, I highly recommend working in several mediums, because the different mediums are going to turn your brain onto things and ideas that you would not get working in one medium only. So it's so crucial to just open your brain a little bit to see things in a different way, and working in several mediums really forces you to do that, because you can't solve the problems the exact way over and over again, which is great if you're working in one medium, right? There are some advantages, and the advantages is that your problem solving is pretty much continuous in all the time. You're going to have a more linear, pragmatic approach to things. But when you're forced to look at things differently, it gets a little bit more, your problem-solving skills get more honed in, because you're used to solving problems more on a fly because you don't have the security of that one medium that you always used. Patty, thank you so much for hanging out. I really appreciate it. Thanks for your compliment. And don't work too hard, okay? And I hope your doggies are doing good. I've seen you posted about them. And I'm just going to continue revising and kind of working this together. And this bone black is really a nice kind of warm, almost transparent quality. I'm going to take that bone black. I'm going to come down here and define her boot. And then I can do some really nice highlights, you know, with some really thick opasto. No. What is impasto? Sorry, not opasto. Impasto. And I got some really cool things by Golden here. This is something called modeling paste. And let me show you the things that you can do with Golden products. If I can open it. So here's a nice modeling paste, and what you can do with something like this is it has a nice thick consistency. So let's say I wanted to have like some impasto somewhere. I can take some of this paste right here, put it on my palette, and I can color it, and I can paint with a very, very thick paint. This is basically a paste that's made with the same DNA as any of the Golden line, which is really great. So I can definitely take that and mix it. So let's say I wanted that paste to be really thick somewhere, maybe, you know, in the so I'm going to take that paste and I'm going to color it with that gray and orange mixture that I had, and I'm going to have this really very thick, and make sure that I have more paste. And now it's almost like having a piece of thick oil, and I could actually apply it right here, which is unheard of and very, very experimental and very different in way of doing it. So now I can take a deep, thick paint and watch how I can get that look of chrome, which is really beautiful. The fact that it's so opaque is what's giving me, and I'm using that modeling paste. And I could apply it in so many different ways. I can apply that paste this way, right? With like a Q-tip. Or and then I could shape it a little better. Like right here, I have this thick impasto. And that is a way to get a bright light without having to deal with the transparency of Airbrush. So they work well together. So I want you all to open your mind, because I was originally an oil painter, and I opened my mind to pastels, and then from pastels I opened my mind to colored pencils, and so on, and the story goes, and that's how I try everything. But look at the beautiful opacity that would have been lost to me if I didn't think about the possibilities. I can really brighten the light, like right here. I want to see if I want that light like super powerful here, right? Just for whatever reason, I want this light right here to be super bright. I can do that because I have this intense impasto, sorry. And the advances in acrylic is really quite exciting, because, you know, like companies like Golden and Createx, you know, they're doing some really beautiful things. They're not just status quo, they're growing. That's why I love Createx. I think they're a great paint company. Mr. Air Todd, how's it going? Great to see you. How are you, my friend? Always a pleasure. Now, of course, I'm going to fix that. You know, I'm going to fix that. Went a little off the rails there, but that's easily adjusted. But what I wanted to make sure is that I got that bright, kind of opaque chrome coming down. And you can see how that really looks like that. And now I can do the same here, coming down. Mr. Air Todd, always a pleasure from San Diego. Ah, glad to hear that, my friend. I'm going to do this pole back here. Now I have my acrylics on a wet palette, but that doesn't mean on the brush it doesn't want to dry really quickly. So I have to be careful. See how we really are, we're not See, if we were trying to do this in Airbrush, it would just be too darn transparent. And in Airbrush, there's nothing you can do about it. You can't make it opaque. I mean, you have opaque colors, but good luck trying to make that opaque. And why struggle if you don't have to? Now I have this modeling paste. I'm going to add some of this gray to my modeling paste. And now I have colors that is as thick as oils, which is quite nice. We'll put some bright color there, and then what I'll do is I'll just kind of spread it out with a dry brush technique. And now the floor is looking a little bit more like a subway floor. Maybe in a perfect world, since it's so clean. But this is not a commentation, or it's not something that's about the unkempt floors of the New York City subways. So here's a case in point why this technique, what I'm doing, is valid. See here, no matter what I do with the airbrush, I'm not going to really get rid of that spot that's there. But watch what happens when I come in with some of that light modeling paste. I could really cover that up. And I can do some dry brush around it. Really get a sense of, you know, what the floor would be like with all these fluorescent lights around it. And then I could use this to maybe do the highlights of her sock right inside her boot here. Just the tip of her sock is getting a little bit of light here. Same thing over here, just a little tip right here is getting more light, and I can apply a nice amount of impasto. Ooh. Hit some black, I didn't realize it. And everything is a to be continued, but you see how we can really make this floor kind of being affected haphazardly from these subway lights and the advertisements on the side there, and maybe the lights coming from outside from the windows. And maybe I can come back in if I wanted to with some airbrush techniques. Because this is all acrylic, you know, the Createx paints are all acrylic as well. And then down here, we definitely don't want to ignore that, right? So we're going to come in here and wipe the brush clean and kind of do some dry brush here. I'm going to add some acrylic medium because I want it to be really thin. You know, I can go really thick and really thin with brush techniques. Now I could use some of this light color. Like I said, we want to shape her. So how we do that is lightening or darkening the adjacent shapes to get a more sense of her structure. I'm going to do that here. There we go. And you can see how now by adding that light we get a more of a sense of where her feet are, where her head is, and she's part of the environment, but she's also her own person, you know. She's definitely separated from the environment as well. So I can see my paintbrush is getting a little beat up from the acrylics. You got to be careful with acrylics. So I'm going to purchase a large, which is going to be great. I'm going to purchase a large wet palette. The one I have from Redgrass is fantastic, but I feel like what I'm about to embark on, I'm outgrowing it, right? So that's when I'm going to get a large one, like a 12 by 16 by Masterson. I have their wet palette, which I put my oil palette in, and then it's just a regular glass palette. I put it in there and seal it and put it in the freezer. But I'm going to get a large 12 by 16, maybe a bit larger, by Masterson, and I'm going to do the same thing with the foam and the paper, and but I definitely outgrew it. The small one I think is really good for, let's say, traveling, but I don't know if it's going to be good enough. Definitely isn't good enough for where I'm taking it now. I'm taking the wet palette to the next level. So I want this highlight to be a little more forceful on this bench here. And again, so that's what I'm doing, right? Is I'm basically, you know, kind of refining this painting slowly to where it's coming more into my vision of what I initially had. And that's not going to be just copying what I'm seeing, but it's going to happen when I I really, take it to a much more detailed, or not even detailed, but a much more finished state where I'm worried about every little aspect of the painting. Just everything down to her bag. And in this painting, I have been using a rather large brush, which is interesting. Now, here I was having it go darker, but I don't think so. I don't think this is a large enough space where it goes further that things are going to get that darker. So I'm going to bring a lot of these light colors back there, and I think for me it's more of an interest thing, and also a compositional balance. As everything's really bright just up here, I think we're going to lack compositional balance. Let's see. Now I'm going to make it bright here and then not as bright here because I want the eyes to stop here, right? So that's why I'm going to make it very bright right by her head, because that's where I want your eyes to be. So this is going to probably be the brightest area of the whole painting. It's going to be right at her head. Not necessarily her head is going to be the brightest part, but I'll direct the viewer's eye to the head by putting the brightest part right there. It's not about making it realistic. I mean, that's basically just an aim, and you definitely want to get the colors right, and you definitely want to follow, quantum mechanics and the physical world. You don't want it to go against nature, but you don't want to just paint it like, oh, that looks so real. So what? Are you expressing what you want to say? Are you getting the emotion of the pose? Are you, what is it? What's your aim? Like, what's your goal? And you have to kind of have that from the outset. And right here by her shoulder, I want it to be bright. Just to keep your eyes on our subject, right? Who's the main character? Not the pole back there. The main character is her. There we go. So now we're starting to bring in some really nice contrast. And notice that with the paintbrush, my knowledge of being an oil painter really shows up. That's why I've said, learn different mediums. It will give you ability that you wouldn't get if you just stuck to one medium. Let's bring some brightness to this. We have our modeling paste. Let's see if we can bring some nice brightness here. And you can see how at first it's going to have a little bit of an issue of, let's say, being opaque. So that means we're just going to have to do one layer, let it dry, just like an airbrush, and then do our next layer. And I'm going to show you the other painting that I'm going to be working on to bring it to a finished, completed state. There's actually two paintings that I'm going to be finishing up on the live streams. We'll let that dry and we'll come back to it. And then in the back window here, let's see. Let's make this brighter here. We'll start out with some nice impasto in the center and then bring that out slowly. Some nice dry brush techniques here. There's some dry brush here. Take care, Gary. Always a pleasure, my friend. I hope you have a great night and a great weekend. Thanks so much, my friend. Always a pleasure. And I really appreciate your time and your friendship. It means the world to me, sir. Wow, so look how it's starting to really come together as I don't worry about finishing the painting. I'm just worrying about let the painting kind of breathe. Kind of let the dry brush techniques kind of happen. Then I can go a little bit thicker with the impasto. And that may be a little crazy as far as the color goes. So I'll chill out a little bit. And then just do some dry brush around this. Kind of spread this out. Kind of bring in some of this dry brush here. So dry brush means is that I have a little bit of the paint on the surface, and then I take my brush and wipe it clean, and then I kind of just spread it wet onto dry. Again, you're not going to find this if you're just in airbrush world. You have to open your horizons. It's all about making the best painting, not to be loyal to any one way of doing it. It doesn't make it a better painting because it's done 100% in airbrush. Matter of fact, it makes it a little short-sighted. So I don't like the fact that it's very, how do I say, it's very detailed in the back. So I'm going to kind of get rid of some of the details on the back there, because it is far away, so some of the details will be obscured. Like this line on the door. We wouldn't see it, and even if you did see it, we would not want to, we'd want the viewer's eyes to be going back here. Same thing here. It's kind of obscure, make it a little more obscure. Right back here, there's going to be a blast of light. Who knows why, but I see a blast of light back there. And I have not been using white. There's no white in my painting. I use a very light gray, but nowhere am I using white. So think about that. Why do you know why the paint companies make extra large size tubes of white? Because they want you to make mistakes and use it incorrectly. And when you use white incorrectly, that's when you use a lot of it. But when you use it correctly, you use hardly any of it. If you take my mentorship class, you know, those who do that, they don't use a lot of white. Even ask Roy or Colette will all tell you that white is not a overused, or even, it's used probably less than blue, I would say. And now our second coat here, we're really going to get that opacity that we were looking for back here. And notice I've been using a big brush. Just all those years of painting in different mediums gives me abilities and will give you abilities that you didn't know you had, that you can apply to a painting that's mostly airbrush. Make it nice and bright back there. To bring that eye back there, you know. But it definitely isn't white, which is good to see. So this painting would probably be maybe about 6 by 8. And what I'm going to do is I am going to maybe do this as a large oil painting, maybe something like 24 by 36 or maybe even larger when I get a larger studio. So that's definitely on the pike. Down the pike. That's the expression. What a treat it is to work on airbrush and then go back with oil paint like acrylic. Oh, it's so beautiful. And open your mind to really embrace this and try this with your own work. I think you're going to really love it. Just the way that we're able to, you know, really get that oil painting feel now. It's so funny because I'm an oil painter. That's how I started. You know, I studied with Erwin Greenberg at the High School of Art and Design. Sometimes Max would help out in the morning class and I would get tips from Max Ginsberg. Then I went to the Art Students League. I studied with George Passantino, great oil painter, all oil painters. And then I went to the National Academy and studied with Harvey Dinnerstein, who was an oil painter, but he introduced me to pastel. And then everyone said, after studying oils for 8 years, that every medium I do, I make it look like an oil painting. And I think that's a really nice compliment because that's how I was originally trained. Now I'm going to show you something pretty cool. That if you want to get a better angle, you could always move her around. That's what I'm going to do, just to get a better angle. My whole life I painted on the easel, you know, vertically. But since I started teaching online and doing live streams, I basically had to learn how to paint horizontally. And there's some really good advantages of painting horizontally. I could just turn the painting around and kind of get the angle I want, which is great. Let's get some more impasto. So I'm going to get more of my Impasto medium. Let me make sure I get that correctly. This is interesting. It's not impasto, it's molding paste. Hard molding paste. Let's take a look at that again. So I'm really liking it, and it's also letting me know that I have more work to do with her. But now I'm getting a little more free with not worrying so much of making it look photorealistic, but now I can really kind of take this to the next level. So here is, let me make this darker. So here is my little palette, inexpensive palette. So here's this stuff called modeling paste. And you can see it's pretty thick, right? And if I mix it, it's very thick. And I have this for several years. I have something else here which is interesting. It's not just this. I have this stuff. This is fiber paste. Let's look at the fiber paste. This is also by Golden. I haven't opened this in years, so beware. Ooh, look at that. It's coming out from the side. So that's what happens when you don't use something for many years. So this is a fiber paste, and you can see that's kind of has a texture to it. And I don't think I'll be using the fiber paste, but it's something to think about. But what I will use is this stuff, and I'll put it right here, nice and thick. And I'll show you how we'll use this. So now we have some of this, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to just put some right here. And you see it's like a thick oil paint. It's very thick. And this is actually old. This is probably from like 2014. But what the great thing is that you can actually color this any color that you want, which is really great. Like I said, guys, airbrush artists, open your mind. You know, don't just say, unless you're working on cars, you know, you're painting on a car, then hey, I'm right there with you. You know, you got to work in the confines of sticking to metal and everything. But if you're working on paper, you're working on illustration, just don't stick to one paint. Just don't stick to one technique. Open up and see what you can get. So I'm going to put a little bit of cadmium orange and just a little tiny bit of cadmium orange in there. See that? Just a tiny bit, maybe a little bit more of our cadmium orange. And now that's a nice warm color here. And we'll zoom in for our folks at home. See, now we have a nice, but look, so we're basically coloring that fiber paste. Not the fiber paste, but the molding paste. See, that's like thick oil paint at this point. And now we want to add a nice gray. So we have a light color. And basically that stuff that we have, the molding paste, it's white. So we're going to add to this. And I want a little more of that orange because I want a little more life to it. Just a tad bit more of our cadmium orange. Like I said, I use very little white paint. Actually, I can probably live without white paint. One of the few artists out there who don't need white paint. You get a paper towel and something to drink here. So now we have this really thick viscosity And I can take my brush, and I'm really running low on paper towels. And we're going to take this, we're going to bring our painting back. And now we have something extremely, extremely opaque. And we'll lighten this up. Lighten her up. Put this right here. Now we have this beautiful light color. But now we have this amazing opacity here. And notice, even though it was a gray, it appears really bright because it's so opaque. So what the opacity is doing, it's reflecting a lot of that light back, and that's what's making it so powerful of a light. So I want the opacity, so like right here I'm going with more opacity, and you can see just how much brighter that is working for us. It's because we're using the molding paste and we're painting with it. And this is really, it's not white, it's gray, but the fact that it's so opaque, our eyes see it as a bright, bright light. Because it's affecting all the light that is in the studio. So you're manipulating photons. So in the coming months, it depends if there's people that are interested. I'm thinking of doing a like a 4-week workshop of working with airbrush and acrylic brush painting. So it's for someone who has some experience in airbrush, and so we're definitely going to take it to the next level where you'll be able to use the airbrush and then do the paintbrush on top of it, and then do the airbrush on top of the paintbrush techniques, and keep going like that. I like the fact that I'm not making it darker as it goes back. I think this is far more effective to have the bright lights go all the way back. I think I like that better. And just using the paintbrush technique, like let the paintbrush kind of live in a sense, not be so precious with it. But it's a nice impasto that I'm working with now. Get some of this impasto here. Just like a blast of light right here. Nice blast of light by her foot. Maybe a nice blast of light right here. And I'm using the impasto. Like a director, he directs what you want to see. We're doing the same thing. So I want you to see this boot. And I want you to see her hair. So I'm going to get real thick over here. I'm not just making decisions to make it look like a photo. It's much more sophisticated than that. I want you to be much more sophisticated than just make it look like a photo. You are painters. You're artists. You have bigger fish to fry than make it look like a photo. Let the other artists make it look like a photo. You want to depict light the way that it behaves. Don't be a painter, be a visionary. See how the light is kind of alive, right? The photons are exploding here and there, and that's what you want. Right here we have this beautiful light that's right by her hair. So what I want to do is I want this to explode like fireworks. And what that does, it really brings you to her expression, her fatigue. Maybe the day was just so darn boring. She can't keep her eyes open. Or maybe she's dreaming about the weekend. It's only Tuesday. Now I can come back here with airbrush techniques and I'll show you to kind of finish some of the techniques I can do with airbrush and India ink over my acrylic. So in my airbrush now I have some light mixture. Now sometimes with airbrush, before you even press down, ink comes out, and that's what's happening here. So that's telling me that there's some dried ink in the nozzle here. And that's usually an easy fix. And there definitely was some dried ink in the nozzle. And when I pull back, before I pull back, if I see some ink coming out, and that means there's still an issue. So I'm just going to blow out. and hopefully that will fix the situation. And also, I'll just kind of twirl the needle, because a lot of times the dryness is right at the nozzle. It feels better. Let's see how it goes. Yeah, see how when I press down, the ink's coming out? That's not a good sign. Several things could be causing that. There could be something that's keeping the airbrush from closing that gap between the nozzle and the needle. The needle's not sitting all the way up, closing that gap. Let's see. See, still ever so lightly. And what that's telling me is that there's something at the nozzle. And that's okay. Now, even something more serious is that it could be something that is actually like the nozzle cracked, and that very well could be. Oh, it's still coming out a little bit. So since it's coming out a little bit, we'll work on the background a little bit here. Okay. Just going to calm down the background. And you see, if I add some ink, I could actually just quiet those values. Add some entropy. Whoop, it got a little too wet there. That's okay. Just create a little more contrast back there. I can always go over it with the paintbrush techniques. Add a little bit of dark here. Just kind of pumping that trigger. But at least she's not just floating in the air now. Now she's causing some shadow, right? She's darken this here. Darken some of this area in here. See, now you can do the airbrush over the acrylic, no problem whatsoever. Kind of keep working that back and forth. And every time I work a little bit, so here with the India ink, it's so transparent, I could actually use that to create, you know, some light gray values with this, because it's just going to darken the value that's there already. It's so transparent, and the fact that this the Airbrush India inks that I created, they're waterproof, so you can paint over them with acrylic, you can paint over them with Createx, no problem. You can even paint over them with oils. It's just you have to be careful that when you do paint over them, that you don't do oils. You can do oils over them, but you can't do anything on top of oils. Remember that. Ah, I like this. So we're at 11:23. That means we're getting ready to end the live stream. So for the few people who were here, thank you. For those who weren't here, you weren't meant to be here. So I'm not upset. I'm not overly happy, but I'm not upset with those people. Not happy with them that don't come to my live stream. But what are you going to do? There's a lot of people getting kind of crowded on Wednesday nights, which isn't really cool, because I'm not doing live streams on other artists' nights, but other artists feel like it's okay to do live streams on Wednesday nights. Even though I've been doing live streams since 2016 on Wednesday nights, but that's okay. But thank you everybody for coming tonight. It really means a lot to me, honestly. So now I have this airbrush here. It's a little bit darker on her leg here, but I wanna actually protect the leg and the edge here. So see how I darkened that leg and, but still kept this really nice hard edge. Same thing, we want to protect our edges, and we also want to make sure that we're creating beautiful separation of her from the background. There we go. So you see how we're using airbrush, we're using paint techniques, we're using Createx, we're using India ink, we're using golden acrylics, we're using modeling paste. It's really amazing the amount of expression that we can get. Now I'm just going to keep going with this painting until I really feel like I exhausted every avenue of possibility. So I really feel that the vision in my head and what I have on the paper actually match. And just by going over it a little bit with the Airbrush India inks, I could actually enhance that texture. And now with the Airbrush India inks, I can deepen some, I can really do some deepening of the, so next week, we're gonna, that's if I don't finish this painting during the week, we're gonna continue on this. Good chance I will continue this. Take care, Mr. Todd. No, never worry about talking. It's always great to have you here. And I appreciate you there, Mr. Todd, for hanging. Let me see, do I have the painting that I want to show you? So hold on one second, I'll tell you what I'm going to be working on after this painting is done. Let's see. A lot of paintings here, but we want to see if I can find the one that I will be working on. Let's see. We got a lot here. So here's something pretty cool I was working on in my student classes. This is, of course, I don't have to tell you who that's a painting of. That's done in oils. Oh, here it is. I found it. So this is the painting that I'm going to be finishing after this. So I'm working on finishing paintings that I started before, because what happens is if you don't finish a painting, you don't feel complete going into the next painting. And that's where I am with these. Let me show you. So this right here, see, that's an elephant I did. But here we have this beautiful young lady that we're working on. And I definitely can finish her up and really lighten some of this, and I think that's going to be great. So I'm looking forward to completing that with some paintbrush techniques and everything like that. So I'm excited to do that. So we have this painting that we're finishing, and we'll be finishing up this painting here. So I'm excited, and I hope you guys are excited. And remember, widen your horizons. Don't be stuck with one way of doing it. There's no nobility in not growing. And so I just want to say, everyone, thanks so much for hanging out. I appreciate it. I hope you have a great night, and I will talk to you soon. Bye, everybody. And don't feel shy to ask any questions. You know, you can always go to paintingclips.com, and I'll answer any questions you have, or even leave a question in one of my videos. Okay? Take care, everybody.